Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you always got to have a lighter side to things for a minute, right? I just happened to think when you said nobody cares whether a vice admiral gets paid, I imagine that's probably true. We share something in common, all of us up here. Nobody gives a damn if Congress gets paid. Let me tell you, they probably wonder why we do sometimes. On a serious note, we've kind of danced this dance, some of it before. All of us, we've spoken before, and just some of the same subjects I want to bring up. And I'm going to state the obvious, what we know. The Coast Guard faces a growing mission demands, but suffers from serious shortfalls in assets. We know it. Infrastructure, recruitment, and long-term planning are still a problem. Despite ongoing modernization efforts, delays and cost overruns have left the service struggling, and they're struggling to meet operational needs, as we know, putting us at a serious disadvantage on the global stage. And as you've heard from me before, and I think from members on both sides of the aisle on this, by the way, this is bipartisan, really upset about it, really want us to do better. We need to do better. And the Polar Security Cutter program is critical. We know that. We know we only have 2 icebreakers. My colleagues on both sides of the aisle have mentioned it already. Compared to Russia's 55, I believe, 55, far short of the at least 8 or 9 more that we need for core missions. Our aviation fleet's under strain. Our helicopters are slow. We haven't transitioned to new models quickly enough. So let me just ask you this question, and you've answered it before, but I think it's good for some of our new members to hear and others. Vice Admiral, how has the slow procurement of the fleet impacted, and this is, let me get particular to my district for once, the mission readiness of Air Station Atlantic City?
Sir, when we talk about mission readiness, it's all those things. It's our ability to maintain our assets, it's ability to provide the facilities and housing to our crews that are need to operate within them, and then this ability to build new things to support the newer assets that have greater demands than some of our old. So in all those cases, sir, without the proper amount of money, we're having problems doing that. I think everyone in here has had a car that they maybe held on to just a little bit too long, and you start looking at all those costs associated with maintaining it as opposed to spending the money to buy a new one. We're in a point where we are maintaining old cars that take a lot longer.
And I think you're right, and I think we have to focus on this, and I know and hopefully we are going to push forward. There's other examples I could give, other examples we could talk about. You know them, I know them. I think the committee and the chairman knows them. But this is what I'm thinking. I think we need a clear long-term strategy. I think most people agree with that. One that defines where the assets are going to be in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. The plan's got to be realistic. There is only so much money, but we really need a realistic plan, a forward-thinking plan for shipbuilding, aircraft procurement, recruitment goals, infrastructure improvements, and backed by some kind of sustainable funding levels that are dependable. So this is something I'm looking at legislation, looking to work with. I know I've spoke to John Garamundi on the other side of the aisle, some other folks on this side of the aisle, to set benchmarks, at least so we know where we should be, instead of, and I'm not blaming you. Again, I've said this many times, I love you guys, Kate May does, we're on board, but we just need to, instead of having every year and every session, every 2 years, having the same conversations, try to move forward, at least set out in a significant, substantive way what our goals are. Even if we fall short sometimes, we know where we fell short, we know what they are, instead of having, and again, our bad, I'm not blaming you, but just having these vague conversations where we go back and forth and say, hey, we're not up to snuff, we're not doing what we should do, and we're competing with others that are. So I'm gonna work on that. I don't know where it's gonna lead me, but we've been working on that already. We've spoken to Leg Council, we're drafting legislation. I don't know if it'll be in the form of a resolution, we'll see. And I look forward to members on the other side and our chairman and others really working on this. I'd love to get down to it. I don't, if hopefully I'm here 2 years from now, I don't want you sitting there and me sitting here and saying, remember when we talked about this in the last session and the session before and the session before that, So that's my goal. Do you think this is something the Coast Guard could appreciate, some sort of plan like that?
Sir, yes, I think we would love that. Just as we like GAO kind of looking over our shoulders, telling us, hey, you got $24 billion of shore infrastructure, you need to be spending 2 to 4% to maintain that, and we're not doing that. When you look at the depreciation of our shore infrastructure, and most of it's been depreciated a long time ago, and it's well past its service life, we think those benchmarks can help you understand, help us understand where we need that investment, that $7 billion in infrastructure, where we need those new cutters, and why we need them sooner than later. Yes, sir.
And I'm going to yield back, but I would say there's probably some more waste in the Department of Defense that we could use in the Coast Guard, but that you can't comment on that. I understand that. I yield back, Chairman.